Hello, good morning, everybody. We are very happy to have all of you here. We are going to share with Namita our experience that we developed in Ecuador, South America. This is really very encouraging us, because it was projects that we have consultants from India, Argentina, and also from Ecuador. So really was a collaboration team. I think that pandemic leave many bad things, but at the same time, we feel that the pandemic helped us to find other resources and besides that, the pandemic asked us to be far away, one from each other. We feel that the pandemic make us to feel closer from India to South America. So we really are very happy with Namita to share this experience with all of you. And so I think that we're ready to start, okay? Well, the general goal of this was that a Fe Y Alegria organization, who has several institutions of Fe Y Alegria in Latin America. They have services in Ecuador, they have services in Bolivia and some other places, but they invite us to provide some consultation, to work with the teacher, with the families, and with the manager of Ecuador service. And so we were working with 3 services in order to ensure that the children receive the kind of services that they need in order to access to the learning process. Our specific goal was to identify the needs that the children has, but also the need, we can say, that the professional has to interact and to make the process of learning more accessible for them. And also to implement some strategies in order how to develop the classes, because something that the management group was concerned if the teacher were applying in online services the right approach to work with the children. So who gets some benefit from there? I can say that first, all of us. I think that our team we were the first benefit, because we learned so much from the family, from the children, of course, but for the teacher and therapists. So I think that we are the first beneficiary. And also the students with disability, families, teachers, classroom teachers, and therapists. Okay, the first thing that we did was to try to learn a little bit more what people feel about the service, what they think, how the service was developed. Because, of course, we get many papers from Fe Y Alegria organization, but we wanted to be sure that that was really the needs that people have. So we make a kind of questionnaire that was without the name, and we made 3 questionnaires, one for family members, one for professionals, and one for management. And the 3 questionnaires were looking those indicators: accessibility and technology, teamwork, virtual educational process, and educational management of the curriculum. of course, the kind of question was a little bit different for one group to another group, but the objective was the same one. What we found, when we started to get all those forms, we saw that first, the teachers and family were really very happy and appreciate all the effort that Fe Y Alegria did in order to provide them all the resources to develop the online classes. However, we found that they needed training in order to use the technology in the best way, but also in order to provide some changes in their practice. Well, that is. Because, sorry, can you go on? We said needed to learn how to be more effective in delivering virtual education. Because what we saw later on is that they try to replicate what they did in the classroom at the school. They try to replicate in online services. Okay.
Just to clarify, we did the 3 surveys. We did the surveys of the different groups, but we did summarize the surveys and get all this information. And really, that first thing, that grateful. We are grateful that in this terrible time, everyone is doing so much. We are really grateful. And does your child enjoy? Yes, he loves to listen to the voices. When we have an actual conversation with families, we realize that it begins and ends with the grateful, that there wasn't really very much actual learning, but there was a huge appreciation of the effort. And this is really something that we have to be careful, because when we do surveys, they simply answer the question, are you satisfied? Oh, 1,000,000 times. They are so good to us. They are so kind, right? So we followed up also with direct observations. We sat through classes, and this was another source of information where we could see what was actually happening. So the second 2 didn't come so much from the survey as our actual observation of our practice, of sessions.
Okay, what we found through this questionnaire, we found that what they got, that the headmaster of the director of Fe Y Alegria had more ideas about how to deliver the services that they provide. Secondly, teachers were more motivated, and also we were very impressed how open they were to show what they were doing, and also family. Some of them with very low income, that they just open, their home and share everything what they have. So for us, the second was very important, because if the teacher is motivated and open to hear new things, it's easier the collaboration. Okay. And the third result was that they could create a team between the therapy, the teachers, and the management, and of course the family. Before, at the beginning, what we saw was that the family was not included at all. They were just receiving information, okay? Tomorrow the class will be about, I don't know, vegetable. And so the mom has to, or the sibling has to have available the vegetable. But they don't know how to do, how to approach, how to put those vegetables. It has to be concrete, it has to be mashed. They don't know. They just follow what teacher said.
Again, yeah. So just to give a context, I realized that we should have put up a process slide, because what is a process that we followed? We started with the conversation with the management, since they were the ones who raised the issue. They were concerned, they were just wondering, we are doing all these things, are we doing the best we can? Should we be doing something else? Should we be doing something differently? Then we came up with a plan that we invited all the teachers and everybody to get on board and to listen to how we think we should approach it. And after this discussion together, we created the 3 surveys for the 3 different groups, addressing all the points as Graciela showed us. Those surveys went out to the families, the therapists, the management, and those results came back and we summarized them. The management then put out a call to families and said, who would like to be a part? They put out a call to the teachers, who would like to be a part? And they tried to make sure that the different organizations with their different populations and challenges had a good representation. Those families, those participants then got divided among us as the consultants. There were 4 of us. We teamed up. And so we took 2 institutions, they took 2 institutions, and the families and the teachers were assigned to all of us. We met with each of them, we watched sessions, we gave them feedback immediately, followed up with more detailed feedback, like questions, observations, suggestions, and sometimes we met directly with the teacher before the next session to answer questions. We created little WhatsApp groups with each, including the family, of course, so we could discuss, we could plan together, we could strategize together. And remember, we've observed, so we've seen the house. And we can say, remember, behind you there was that pillow. Against the wall there was this photograph. Can you take, for the next session, you bring that down and you turn it over and you can use the back. And things like this. So we could be really specific and very contextual with each of the families and each of the groups. This feedback they implemented, and after the session was over, we got to discuss again. So from planning the class, implementing the class, evaluating, self-evaluating, and then discussing stuff, and thinking about how to move forward, we really worked hand in hand with the team. It was very personal, and like Graciela said, they were so special that they were so excited at this possibility. It's like, wow, we never thought of that. Oh my God, look at what he's doing, or, So there was this excitement. There were a lot of tears from parents, from teachers. A lot we sort of required maybe that the therapists and the managers joined some of the classes so they would understand what we were talking about. So that process was very rich. And
I think, to summarize, Namita, I think that was possible because the opening of Fe Y Alegria organization, they were opening to show what they were doing. They would say, okay, here we are. This is our body. What we can do with this. This is our resources. What we can do. So I think that has a lot of value. And I would like to add about the therapists that at the beginning they were just very surprised because we invite them to be part of the classroom session. But later on, she will talk later on they said, oh, I can contribute with this, and this that I was doing in an isolated way.
All right. So the second big question that we addressed was, how well does the education program meet the needs of each of the children and their families? And we looked across the questions of person-centered planning. How is the assessment process? How is the determination of the goals? What was that whole process? Then how was a program set, how were practices picked, and what accommodations, how were accommodations determined, and how were they put together. So these were the indicators that we used when we watched the sessions. And our feedback was also kind of along these lines. Well, we found a lot of problems. We found a lot of problems, and not surprising, because it started with a very medical evaluation, a very, very, very medical evaluation. So the therapists, each therapist in isolation, not even together, each of them would do their program, and each of them would set their goals, and then the child gets passed on to the teacher. There was no holistic planning. Each of them, including the teacher, planned her own thing. Each one planned their own thing, and the child's program looked something like X number of hours of speech therapy, X number of hours of physiotherapy, X number of hours of education, and nothing was connected.
And also, can you imagine the families that they receive reference and indication from different therapists, from the teacher? So they were really lost.
No surprise, the goals, the plans, everything was focused on deficit. So we looked at a lot of goals like sitting behavior and weight bearing, and that's it. Can you imagine an entire online session on sitting behavior? What do you think that even looks like, right? So the teachers, the actual educational part of the program was completely disconnected from everything else. And they just were by themselves. They had a plan, like she said, today we do vegetables, tomorrow we do fruits, today we're doing big and small, whatever it was. And it was just done like 45 minutes of something. The families were like assistants. You use them like classroom assistants, like your available hands and body. So they'd say, hold it like this, say this, something, something. And I'd say the families were fantastic. They were really great. They had everything ready. They would listen to the teacher. They would follow the instructions. No one really, nothing changed, but they did everything that they could do. And it was like the resources of the family, the strength that was visible to us in one observation, nobody seemed to see. They did not look at this as an opportunity. It was just literally taking a classroom session and dumping it into this. That's it.
And also know the environment at home, but also the environment in the community. The teacher didn't ask for anything. What was around there that can be used in the class?
But as Graciela said, what was really an enormous strength, and the reason we were able to move forward, was that the teachers were hugely committed. The organization itself was very open. There was no attempt to make things sound good. So we could also be really open, and that was brilliant. What we also saw was just love. You know, they would start a session and say, hola, and you'd see the child just like, whoa, you know. You could see the way they talk with the parent, that there's a real connect, that there's real respect and affection and connection with the mums or whoever was usually, yeah? They were almost, one sibling, one lovely sibling. It was very, very, very lovely to see this. And again, like Graciela said, there was a real desire of everyone in that interaction. Almost all the teachers, I won't say all, but almost all, were really committed and wanted to change, wanted to see stuff happen. The one thing that I think the strongest, most powerful change agent was really helping them see using a different way of assessment could change everything. And they really got that idea, and they embraced the idea. And this was really fantastic.
I think that they could change from deficit perspective to potential perspective. And I think that was great. That was great.
The second was we worked a lot on this whole idea of going yes, to really look at a student's strengths and to build on that. I think the big surprise for them was how we encouraged them to use the family. And I don't just mean the resources that we saw in front of us, like the space, the materials, but also the people. Like we discovered who lives in this family, what is the relationship, where do you go and do things, how do you do things, who cooks, who does this, who does that. And we could bring the entire family into the educational process. And this for them was something they never thought about. It's not that the child was not included. These are often really warm, loving families. But the child is treated as someone to be kind to, not someone who could contribute. And we spoke a lot about a child's role as an active participant. What is he doing when you clean up? What is, this child does this child does this. What is his responsibility? He needs a responsibility. That was a new idea. So really understanding, for parents particularly, this understanding that the weight of an educational program or a therapeutic program or any program isn't yours, it's ours, it's the family's, was something that was a big game changer for them. They really saw the importance of working together as a team. As Graciela said, the therapists came dutifully because they were told, and even the manager, one of the managers showed up because we had requested it. But once they sat through the first session with us, they were just like, wow, this is so cool. We can do so much. Whoa, you can do my goals, I can do your, it was lovely.
And also was very impressive, the contribution that they gave. Because we said with Namita, for instance, what we can do with this situation that the child is sitting in this way and he needs to be in that way. How we can do, Namita? What do you see, teacher? What do you see? So the therapist, she started to say, well, you can do this, you can do that. So they saving themselves. Namita and I just guide the boat, and I think that gives power to them.
We switched out naming vegetables and with real activities. That was a no-brainer. That was the easiest change. Yes. And we spent a lot of time on communication. This was a bit shocking to us to see this, because these are programs we know have received interventions before, trainings before. So really seeing how it did not translate into practice was a bit shaming for us. We are often trainers as well. And we worked a lot on communication strategies and putting things in place. And again, not just the really scary, let's use this button and that talk back and this something, which everything is so complicated and strange. We talked about just using photographs on a wall, a little message board.
To make the changes in the seesaw.
Small things, and things that are already in their environment. So we said, can you put pictures of your family members near the telephone so we can talk about who called in context? It doesn't really have to be everything in a book, right? So we talked about and demonstrated a lot of these things as, it doesn't have to feel so strange. We can make this easier.
And also if the child was sitting in one way, we say, okay, what do you think if we try to sit him in that way, in another way? And so when they see the changes, they really wanted to make more and more and more.
Yeah, so these are some examples of, we did both the really formal and then the informal stuff. So on the left, you see how everything was presented to the child who had no clue what was in front of him. And then on the right, you see, okay, let's be systematic. Let's, this was actually naming vegetables. Right? In case you were wondering why we were looking at a plate of food, right? So even just really basic things, helping you understand what a child is going to be able to perceive, how would you organize and arrange information in just really simply without making it very complicated for you, and also identifying things that the organization might want to make available to the teachers and to the families, like per child, so that they're not scrambling for some stuff which is not expensive and is just easy for them to package and send off. At the conclusion of our experiences, we met, of course, as a team a lot, sharing with each other what we learned, what we saw, what worried us, what upset us, what we celebrated. And we supported each other as well a lot and took strategies and resources from each other. We created resource banks for the teachers. We helped put things together for them to read, for them to use, like ready-to-go things that they could,
and for parents too, was
a lot for the parents.
That everybody can have access.
Yeah, so we created that idea that everyone has equal access to everything and everyone contributes to everything. So families would put in things, not just questions or requests, but information and ideas. And it really it became so healthy, it was lovely. And at the very, very end then, we invited everyone to the table to have this big 2 days, 3 days, I don't know, a lot. We talked through my night and their day. I was very sleepy. But it was great because each team presented about the child, about the process, about their learning. Parents talked, siblings talked, teachers talked, therapists talked, whoever wanted. It was presented together, which was marvelous. They spoke about the changes that they saw, the things that they were thinking of changing for themselves. And this was also something really, for us, this was a great feedback. And they shared the things, the new ideas that they got, that they implemented, and how well it worked with the larger team.
That also has a lot of value, because in that moment they share how they did and what changes they did. So they present to the rest of the school community what they were doing and how changes they make. So it was to say, okay, here we are, but we can make change,
So these were some things that we really spoke a lot about. That as an organization, they realized that they had really looked at education as only being a curriculum that was focused on academic. So they had therapy and they had academic. And now they knew that they had to plan differently. They were very, very clear about this point, that planning with student strengths was very valuable. And this idea of working as a multidisciplinary team, having had this positive experience, is something that's become integral to the organization. We want to end with this. It was one of the teachers who said, "Now I am aware that Damien is a child with a lot of potential. We must know what his needs and interests are, as well as ways of communicating and relating to others. To us, it was so shocking. Isn't this something I didn't have to come and tell you this. To think that you've planned and implemented programs with a child without this very foundational way of thinking of serving is really something. Huh? But the idea that within 2 or 3 sessions you could make such a big leap is also something lovely. Although we actually spent, in terms of watching and talking, we would have spent maybe a couple of hours each time. But it was also all the other things that we did in the middle. The WhatsApp group was very good because there was a lot of chatter and checking and on-the-spot responses, and setting up the Google Drive with resources and plans and whatnot. I think these things also made a tremendous difference.
I just want that they learn a lot, but we as a team learn a lot from each other as consultants. And also I learned a lot from Namita, of course, because we were working as a peer, and to hear her from different culture and some beautiful ideas that can be applied in any place, you know. And so it was really a benefit, I think, for everybody. So here, if you have question or comment or something that you can suggest us for improving these activities in the future, we will be very happy to hear your recommendation. Thank you.
Sorry, I just wanted to say one last thing, which is, as a consultant, I travel to a lot of countries and spend a lot of money and a lot of time working in classrooms with people. I'd never say that that's a waste of time, but I want to say how shocked I was at how impressively effective this process was at I don't know, this much of the price, you know. So really this idea of teaming, if there was a little physical direct presence, it would have been wonderful. But even without that, I think it was an amazing learning what you can achieve.
Sorry, Daria, you had. I just wanted to ask because that's. Okay. Yeah, I was just talking the other day to Martina, and I reached the point also working everywhere that, you know, a lot of programs receive a lot of training, and you've been there and you've seen that, and then you come again and there's nothing. I mean, it is happening, but not to the extent that you would expect after all that. And you can't be physically all the time there. So I was just thinking, are you planning a follow-up? And with how many of that is organization? And maybe you said, but I did not hear it. How big it is? And did you work only with a few classrooms, or how did it go? And how would you sustain a change? Do you have any ideas?
Well, Fe Y Alegria is an organization who has representation in different countries in Latin America, but who really contacted us was the Ecuador one, and they have 3 schools distributed in different places in the country, and they receive sources, financial sources from Ibero-American Bank. And from that, they evaluate what they need were, so they contact us. But we keep, from many years, we knew Fe Y Alegria, and we are in touch with them. And this is with financial, but sometimes not with financial. So, I mean, we can keep doing, and we are in a very good communication with the director of the organization. So
yeah. That is very nice. That's the key, because the teachers will come and go.
That's what I wanted to say. You do something, they go.
The director was really, is very open.
That's very, very open. Not taking it into account.
I would just, oh.
Hi, my name is Divya, and I'm deaf and blind, and I have been involved with lots of activities here in the United States. And for me, as a deaf-blind person, I've experienced, school situations where, I did not receive full support, and I needed to be able to show how I was able to advocate for myself and overcome my barriers. And so, as a self-advocate person, I'm determined to help to empower others. And to tell people what it is that I need and what I wish my parents could have seen, could have been involved with in my own school experience as far as communication. I lived in a dorm, and I did not get to see my parents daily, meaning that my experience was very different than my parents' own experiences. So they would come to visit the school maybe once or twice from time to time, and then they would have these meetings to talk about me. But for me, I became more empowered to say these are the things that I need, and to be able to tell the school the supports that I needed. And then later on, during this time, it was different than it is today, of course, but the education, the family, they were all very impressed, and through this process, we all worked together. And my parents also became empowered through this process to see that they, could advocate for their own children and for my needs as their child. And so needed to see exactly what it was that I needed as an individual. My parents were able to see that since during school, I was not living at home with them in the house every day. They were not seeing what I was doing daily compared with whenever I would be in the dorm versus when I would be at home with them. So my parents, they just developed a team approach, and so I could say these were the negatives, these were the complaints, and my parents would not be aware of that otherwise, since they weren't there when I was away at residential school. So, and then when I've experienced being in private school, I experienced a dorm, I also experienced mainstream school. And so through all of this, my parents became more involved and became an advocate with me, with my teachers, to tell them what it was that I, as their child, needed to have access. And I had the ability to have self-determination. That was key. Children need to be able to have their own thoughts, their own feelings, to assess their own awareness, and to be able to share that with their parents or with their teachers. Say, I cannot see this on the board, or this equipment is not working for me. It's very important for the children to learn how to do these things on their own, to be empowered to inform the team what it is in order to be able to work together. And so that has been my experience. And I feel like that's been successful for me. And to be honest, I wish that my parents had been able to see more of my education process, what was really happening. My education, who it was that was making decisions, especially early on, was the school. Were making all these decisions for me, and I had to fight with the school system quite a bit on my own, saying no to some of these things. I don't agree with these things, and I had to fight for myself. And then I would try to contact my parents and have my parents contact the school, because the school would listen to my parents instead of listening to me. So that was kind of my experience and my perspective. And really, so like tomorrow, I'm giving a presentation about deaf-blind citizens in action, and I will talk some about, how the beginnings were with me. And then later, I became elected as a president of this organization, Deaf-Blind Citizens in Action, and we've worked with education projects, and I've shared my experience with how I approach things, how I advocate, with educational access. Because at this time, so they would say, oh, if you're deaf, you go over here. If you're blind, you go over here. But with both the dual sensory, there was not that advocacy and that support there for education. So, there wasn't exposure to educate a child who was deaf and blind. So I definitely had to fight for myself, really without my parents for much of that. So, but I have been impressed with how my parents have become more and more powerful now and more outspoken because they've learned more to trust their own instinct as parents and to be involved with contacting teachers when it would be necessary, saying our daughter Divya needs these things, and then the teachers would know how to plan accordingly, you know, what it was that a child needs to get the best education that they could.
My apologies, that was great. Thank you very much. Thank you both again for your excellent presentation. A lot of lessons learned, a lot of things I think we can take back, and really the effects of the open communication and making sure that everyone's involved with the decisions. We do have a token of our appreciation for both of you for coming, so thank you very much. That one's for you. You're welcome. That one's for you. And we appreciate. So thank you all again for coming. We encourage you to head off to your other congruent session, but a big round of applause. Thank you, ladies.